does it feel like to be the best in the world? I mean, the best. To stand alone atop a mountain and see nothing but blue sky above and miles of rock below. I honestly can't imagine it. The concept of having nowhere to go but up feels alien, almost frightening. When you have nothing more to achieve, what else is there? You either fight to maintain your dominance or slide back down the peak. The subject for my next 2 episodes is one of the rare few who can claim the title World Champion. Meet Paul Tessie, also known as Mega Retro Man on Twitch, Twitter, and any place else with a handle. Paul is a competitive video game player who owns a number of records on both Guinness and Twin Galaxies. He's one of those people who can honestly claim to be the best in the world at something. But for one day in 2019, he didn't just excel at a game. He defeated an icon in the process. We'll spend all of next week looking back at the match that made him gaming famous, but this week we start where it all began. A DDR pad in an arcade somewhere in the Pacific Northwest, and walk his journey to greatness. Welcome to A Gamer Looks at 40, Taking Down the Tetris King, Part 1.
When things start changing right before your eyes. When shapes just seem to appear out of nowhere. When the whole world seems transformed. You've been Tetrisized. Nintendo introduces Tetris. It will mesmerize you. Tetris challenges the mind and puzzles the imagination. No other game can stack up to Tetris. Nintendo, now you're playing with power.
I'm from Seattle, Washington, and we had a GameWorks in the city of Seattle. And, you know, they had tons of DDR type games and, you know, various other Baymani style games. Mm-hmm. My first competition was involving DDR.
Okay.
And I did one. In fact, I did one at my local mall where I would always play. You know, and it was you really needed to know the heavier songs.
Okay.
Because the more steps you have, the more points you accumulate.
Okay.
And the songs that I did at the time didn't have very many steps. Like my highest degree of difficulty was, I think, a 7.
Is it a 7 out of 10?
7 out of 9, I believe.
9. Okay. And when you say steps, was it a point value sort of thing? Like the more steps in a song, the more points you could accumulate?
Yeah, like the more arrows there are in a song, the more points there is at the end of the song compared to other songs. Okay. So go ahead, sorry. Like at the on heavy difficulty, I want to play, say, Afronova, which is a very popular DDR song. I don't know exactly how many points there are at the end of the song, so this is just examples. Yeah. I could probably end the song around like 8 million. And then I could do another song, well, let's say, Dream a Dream. And on its heaviest setting. And that one could only maybe get up to 5 or 6 million.
Okay. Wow.
So you kind of see where I'm going with that. There's more room for points on other heavier songs. So the first DDR competition I did, I thought I did okay. Turns out I was one of the worst.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah. I was pretty shocked, but that was because I didn't have the experience like some of these other people did. So
gotcha.
I was playing not as difficult songs as these other guys were.
Gotcha. So that kind of stopped you from the get-go, that you weren't able to just hit those points.
Yeah.
Okay, but you had that first experience, and it sounds like it didn't really go great. What pushed you to keep going on that, though? Sounds like obviously you kept going.
Well, after that, I really didn't do very many competitions for DDR. Okay. It was just mainly I'm just gonna play it just for the hell of it, and because I can. Right. But one night we went to GameWorks, and they were doing a DDR, just this random DDR competition, and I ended up beating my opponent. That was probably my start. It was a very slow start. Let's jump to 2013. What I did was I entered what was called Arcade Armageddon at the Seattle Retro Gaming Expo. They were, I wasn't expecting there to be a game tournament there. Because me and my friend, we went there just to, to look at games, buy games,
right?
Typical vendor expo type stuff,
convention stuff, yeah,
exactly. And that was actually my very first gaming expo that I'd ever been to. So we went to the vendor area, and then went over to the artist area where, they were selling original works and whatnot.
Right.
And then the next room happened to be the free play room for playing, different consoles and games and whatnot. And over on the side, what happened to be, hey, qualifications to get into a game tournament that was happening later that evening. And, the qualifying game was the 1990 Nintendo World Championships.
Now, for those who don't know, the 1990 Nintendo World Championships, or NWC as we're going to refer to it for the rest of this episode, took place over the course of 9 months between March and December of 1990. The competition itself made 29 stops around the U.S. that year, and the winner of those local contests received a trip to Universal Studios to compete in the World Finals. During the competition, contestants played 3 games via a cart custom-made for the NWC. It contained Rad Racer, Super Mario Bros., and Tetris. In each game, the goal is to get to Tetris as fast as possible to get the best score. First, how fast can you get 50 coins in Mario Brothers? Then, how fast can you complete the first race of Rad Racer? And then, how many points can you stack up in Tetris with the remaining time? As a quick side note, if you have a friend who says they played in some gaming thing back in the 90s, you might want to check their garage. If they still have an NWC cart, that thing's worth tens of thousands of dollars right now. It's one of the rarest video game artifacts there is. And while Nintendo resurrected the World Championships in 2017, people still compete on reproduction NWC carts today. And that was the competition Paul encountered while cruising around his first convention. Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So, wow. So I'm just like, I know this game. I think I'd be okay. So I asked, hey, what are the current scores? And they said, oh, nobody's, I think nobody is broken past like 200,000 or 300,000 at the time. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I can do this. So,
wow, okay.
And I ended up getting like a 700,000.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, and at the end of that, I ended up placing second. Somebody else ended up getting a slightly higher 700,000 than I did.
Okay.
So yeah, so they said, okay, this is, I'm second seed. One of my good friends was the 20th seed. And they had listed the tournament games, which was 10-man Saturn Bomberman.
Nice.
Let's see, Sonic 2, 2-player versus Sonic 2.
Naturally.
Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
Okay.
And then a Mystery Finals.
Ooh, oh my God.
Yeah.
Mystery Finals.
Yeah. So, at that time, I turned to my friends, after they had said who had made it into the tournament, and okay, we'll see you at 5 or 6 p.m. Basically in a couple hours. Right. I turned to my friends and I'm like, guys, I've never played a Bomberman game in my life. Help me.
Oh no. Oh no.
So we ended up picking up a one of the Super Bomberman games for the Super Nintendo, and they kind of gave me a crash course on how to play the game.
Wow.
So so I'm just like, I'm doomed. I don't know how this is gonna go.
Now, how much time did you have to prepare? So you're due to compete at 6:00. What time did you realize? Okay, I gotta start practicing for this. Clearly today.
The expo was shutting its doors around. I think it was. I'm sure the times aren't right because I really don't remember when things started up, but I think between closing the doors of the expo and the time the actual gaming event started was like an hour.
Oh my! Oh,
yeah,
no.
so
man.
By the time I told my friends that I had never played a Bomberman game, it was by the time we got the game and sat down to work on it, I had about 10 minutes until the doors closed.
Oh no!
I had to learn Bomberman in 10 minutes.
No. I'm almost afraid to ask how this went. I'm almost afraid.
So so Arcade Armageddon at the time was a gaming tournament / music concert. So they had chiptune artists play in between games. That's how I found out about one of my favorite artists, video game artists, Mega Ran.
Okay.
Chiptune rapper, and just dude is super cool, very nice guy. And the Icarus Kids, who runs by basically the front man of the Icarus Kids, is run by the Icarus Kid himself. Okay. And he ran this whole tournament and concert, and he's one of my good friends now. Cool. Which I'll get into that. So, so we they did so 20 people go into this thing. They start off with the first 10, and I'm not in that set. So I'm kind of watching what people are doing. So I have to kind of learn by watching what everybody else and how everybody else plays. And I'm just like, okay. And then the second set of 10, my friend and I were in the same set. So he could have won, but the first round ended in a draw. So nobody won that set. And 4 people would advance from each set. So they take 20, then they take 8, then 4, and then final 2.
Gotcha. Right.
So just jump to the last round.
Yeah.
3 people had already gone. It was me, my friend, and the 1 or 2 other people left in the last round. And I heard one of these other guys get blown up. So it was me, my friend, and this other guy. And then I heard my friend get blown up. And it came down to me and this other dude, and time was running out. So, which meant the screen was getting smaller.
Right.
And, so I didn't have as many power-ups as this other guy did. So I'm just like, oh gosh. And then suddenly I'm hearing my friend yell in excitement, and I'm just like, what just happened? It turns out I ended up winning that round.
Wow, that's crazy.
I'm just like, what just happened?
And you weren't even quite sure what happened. You were just like, wait, I was just playing. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I ended up moving on to the next round, which was Sonic 2, 2-player Sonic 2.
Yeah.
So we had 4 sets. So 2 people had to do Emerald Hill, 2 others had to do Mystic Cave. Mm-hmm. Another set had to do Casino Night, and lucky me, me and my opponent, we had to do the special stages. You know, the half pipe where you have to collect the rings.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I was hoping not to do that.
Well, that's interesting because like casino, you would think if it's for points, that would be the easy advantage because you could just sit there on those pinballs if there's no time limit and just rack up those points, I would think. I just recently beat Sonic 2 for the first time in my life. So I'm I know everything. I know a little bit. I have modern experience with it. Man, those special stages, it's limited. There's no... Was that your concern? Like, was it points or rings, or how was the competition?
It was for special stages who had the most rings.
Okay.
So, with I don't know if you did special stages with both Sonic and Tails.
I just did it with Sonic. Yeah, just with Sonic.
Okay, so with Sonic and Tails, Sonic. Basically, Sonic will be running up front, Tails will be running behind you, okay?
Right, yep.
If you jump, Tails runs up from underneath you to go up front, and Sonic goes in back.
Okay.
And then, if you jump again, it switches back to Sonic being in front and Tails being in back. So, there was a lot of jumping.
Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of how you were able to manage doing those back and forths, kind of.
Yeah. So I ended up losing the first round.
Okay.
Not by much. Mm-hmm. And then we went into the next round, and the next 2 rounds I ended up winning.
Nice.
So I was going into Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
Yeah.
And I am very, very familiar with Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
Nice. Very nice.
So we were listening to this, one of the artists play, and over to my left, my opponent is talking to some of his friends, and I overhear these magic words. How do I block? I heard that, and I'm like, oh my god. I'm tapping my friend, just... I'm scratching at my friend's arm. I'm like, dude, this next round is all me. He's like, how do you figure? I'm like, I just overheard him asking his friends how to block.
Oh,
and just the face we both made was just like, oh my god, you're going to the final.
That's amazing. Like, do not pass go. That's awesome.
So what they did with God, why do I keep doing that? Was Street Fighter was they make us choose 3 characters before we ever play, and then whoever wins has to switch out their character.
Okay,
and whoever loses has to keep the character that they lost with. So
okay.
So my choices were Sagat, Ken, and Ryu.
Okay, those are good choices. I mean,
yeah.
Sagat, of course, you have to be good with him. Like, you have to really know because he doesn't have much of a jumping range, but he's got a lot of reach.
Yeah. Sagat is, he's easy to learn in Street Fighter 2 Turbo. There's not much to him.
Okay.
But yeah, no, So once we got started, Sagat is kind of a fun character that I use because he's so tall and his roundhouse kick goes so high.
Yeah.
Anybody who has the jumping height of Ken and Ryu, all I have to do is just stand there and kick him.
Right. Yeah. It's hard to jump in on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I started playing around with my opponent, and he started jumping at me. I'm just like, kick. He jumps again, kick. And then he continues to start jumping at me, and I'm just like, man, don't jump at me. This is going to continue if you keep doing this.
Try another tactic. I don't know.
So I ended up winning that round, and then had to switch to Ken, and then that became a little more of a one-sided match. And then, I obviously won that one. And then we had our Ryu versus Ryu match.
Nice.
And I feel so bad for this. I double perfect the guy.
Whoa! Now was this was the kid who didn't know how to block?
Yes.
Okay. See. I mean, look, it's a competition, right? I mean, I'm sure you weren't mean about it, but listen,
yeah, no,
trying to win a game. I get it.
No, the one thing I do remember was we had commentators. We had color commentators for the games, right?
Okay.
And I'm putting on this clinic with as Ryu, and the guys are like, "Come on, guys, give it up for whoever this guy is. Let's cheer him on." And the crowd was like, "No, this no. This guy's getting a whooping."
Man.
So like I said, I ended up double perfecting the guy. I'm just like, man, I'm sorry.
That's crazy. So you clearly won that round.
Mm-hmm. So
what was the secret? What was this? Oh, was that was the end of the Street Fighter, and now you're moving on to the final?
Yeah, the final mystery game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
turned out to be Ice Climber.
What? Random?
Uh-huh.
Random. Had you ever played Ice Climber before?
Nope.
I think I played Ice Climber exactly for 5 minutes on the Switch, I think. And I went, nope, this isn't fun.
Yeah, no.
What happened?
The mechanics are jank in that game.
Yeah,
it's
right?
so bad.
Yeah.
So they said they make the announcement, okay, the secret game is Ice Climber. And I turned to my friend who has played the game before. He knows the game. And I looked at him and I'm just like, what the hell do I do? I've never played this game. And he's just like, really? I'm like, yes. What do I do? He's like, and what they did was they gave us a practice round. Because I guess the guy had very little experience with the game as well.
Everyone's like, Ice Climber?
Yeah.
Who's played Ice Climber? Okay, so they gave you a practice run.
Yeah, and the practice run didn't go very well for me, so I'm just like, okay, well, let's see how this goes.
Right.
So, and we start going, learning how to jump and how bad it was. And then I realized that, I can hit the opponents. Okay, so I can stun him for enemies to hit him. Ooh. So I may have done some dirty tactics.
Right, the game allows this technique, this mechanic. Uh-huh. I think it's fair game unless someone says it's not.
Yeah. So I get to the top of the mountain where you have to grab onto the buzzard, and I'm just like, all right, I'm jumping. I'm not grabbing him. Why am I not grabbing him? Then I hear from the audience behind me, use your hammer to grab the buzzard. And I'm like, oh, okay. That lets you know how much I've played the game.
That's funny.
So yeah, we played like a couple different levels, and then the total points ended up winning the tournament. So they announced the amount of points went towards my opponent, and then they said my name with like 10,000 something odd points, which ended up being the winning score. So that was so that was my introduction to competitive gaming.
That's super cool, man. And did you win anything for that? Did you get a prize or anything?
Yeah, I got a bunch of different games and a Retron 3.
Oh, cool. There you go.
Yeah.
Nice. So, hopefully one of them was Ice Climber.
No.
I'm sure not.
No, these games were pretty much the crap of the crap.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. They weren't very good games, but
gotcha.
It's like, whatever.
That's fine.
I'm not paying for them.
Right. And the fact was you won a pretty intense competition, and you won playing games you had never played before. You got Super Bomberman and Ice Climber. These are games that you just didn't have experience in. How did it make you feel as like somebody who kind of now is starting? Did you catch like a bug at that point? Like, ooh, I want to do more of this.
Yes, actually.
Okay, yeah.
I started getting into score chasing once I found out about like Twin Galaxies.
Yep.
And so I started putting up scores, and which I still have world record scores on that site. And then
what? Not to cut you off, but what games do you have high scores on Twin Galaxies?
Let's see. Currently, the 1990 Nintendo World Championships, the 1991 Nintendo Campus Challenge, 1992 Super Nintendo Campus Challenge, and a few others. I can't think of what they are.
No, I'm just curious, yeah.
But those ones are the big ones for me.
Very cool. That's impressive, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started doing that, and then we went back each year to the Retro Gaming Expo and started doing Arcade Armageddon more often, and we came back, and the guy who ran the tournament was like, he's like, hey, I remember you guys, because it was me and my friend who had competed the year before, and there were other people who competed the year before that recognized us too. So they're saying, okay, well, we're gonna do this as our games this year. So the qualifying games for like 2014 was the 1992 Super Nintendo Campus Challenge, which at that point I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm pretty much one of the best in the world at this game.
Wow.
So, and it showed, because I was the only person to hit over 6 million. And then, gosh, what was, that was a rough year for me, because I had to learn, Mario Kart Double Dash, GoldenEye 007, which, I had mentioned before, I didn't really play that game because it made me sick.
Sure, yeah.
And then, at the time, it was going to be Super Puzzle Fighter. But somebody, at the time, somebody had forgot to bring the game. So they switched it to Tetris Attack.
Oh, boy.
Boy. So I'm just like, okay, I know that game, too. I play enough of it. So yeah, I personally, I think I scraped through GoldenEye by the skin of my teeth.
Oh wow!
So because I don't like playing that game.
Yeah.
Just
not your thing.
It makes me sick. Yeah.
With the motion sickness.
So another friend of mine and I met at semifinals for Tetris Attack. And I'm just like, do you want me to go easy on you? And he's like, dude, you know better than that. I'm like, okay. One of my other friend who had competed the year before with me, he hadn't played Tetris Attack, so I was watching him play before my match, and I'm seeing him topping out because he's raising his stack constantly. He doesn't know what to do. And so he looks at me, and, and I motioned him the top bumpers on the Super Nintendo controller. I just take my index fingers and just go up and down with them, and just, put my, cross my hand, across my neck, basically saying the top bumper buttons, don't touch them. And he's like,
interesting.
Oh, okay. So, and he ended up winning the next 2 rounds.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah, so it ended up being him and I in the finals, which the mystery game was Super Dodgeball.
Again, random.
But that one was a really fun match, because we were both familiar with this game.
Oh, okay, so you had some experience. Okay.
Yes. What's funny about that match was he forgot how to jump. I forgot how to pass to my own teammates. Or how to pass to my own teammates.
Oh, funny.
And how to switch switch them off. So I ended up losing that year. Because he was switching.
Oh, he was able to switch
teammates. So okay. I'm just like, all right, well, this is not going well. And so I ended up losing that year and taking second. And then 2015. Oh my gosh, 2015. So I kind of helped a little bit with the tournament.
Okay, so now you're more involved.
Yeah, because the tournament coordinator, was contacting me saying, "Hey, what do you think of these games?" Blah blah blah, and I'm just like, "Oh, okay. Well, these seem fine. This is up to you. This is your tournament. This isn't mine." And he's like, "Okay, all right, yeah, no, I think we're okay with this." So so that year the games were what was it? Super Off-Road for the first round, Mortal Kombat 2, Balloon Fights Balloon Trip.
Wow.
And then a mystery game. Final game. So Off-Road, I just realized when I practiced it, I was like, okay, really all I need to do is just buy nitrous. I don't need to mess with like the tires, the engines, or any of that other stuff. I just need to buy nitrous and just call it good. So that's what I ended up doing, and I told my friends basically do the same thing. Like, don't worry about anything else, just buy nitrous.
Just buy nitrous. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And so they all three of them went through. Or sorry, four. No. There was a fourth one of us, but he didn't make it. Mm-hmm. So there was three of us, and I made it past Mortal Kombat 2. One of our other friends made it past Mortal Kombat 2. Last year's champ did not make it past Mortal Kombat 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and then we did Balloon Trip, which I was very familiar with, but I choked and was like, okay, I could be knocked out, because my score was so low. Then my friend started playing. He got really close to my score. He ended up choking. So because of his loss, I ended up making it to the final two.
Wow. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So at this point, I'm the only person to have ever made the Arcade Armageddon finals 3 straight years.
Wow.
So then they interviewed both me and my opponent, and that's when they announced the mystery game, Ice Hockey.
Well.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. Ice hockey.
Before then, I had played at a local game store. They were holding an ice hockey tournament, which I ended up winning. So I'm just like, okay, all right, I know what I'm doing here.
Good.
This match was not as easy as I figured it would have been.
Now, real quick, just so I can get a little bit of setup, just as you go forward here. What team did you feel? What combination of characters did you put on the ice?
God, if you remember correctly, it was 2 bigs, 1 medium, 1 small.
Okay, nice combination. So 2 bigs, 1 medium, 1 small. You're heading out there, and you said this was a close contest.
This was a very close contest.
Cool, man.
Like he got in some I'll say it. He got in some lucky goals.
Mm-hmm.
But throughout the majority of the match, I had the puck like 80% of the match.
Wow.
So I was basically just over at his goal, shooting the tar out of the puck, trying to get it in. But, at the end of the third period, it was tied 2-2.
That's not much for ice hockey, where goals come like crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
Defensive game.
Yes. So after the third period, when it goes into a tie, it goes to a shootout.
Yep.
Nobody scored.
Oh, no.
So, nobody scored in the shootout. So, therefore, it was still tied, which means you go into a fourth period. Now, I have never had this happen, let alone go into a shootout. So, we go into this fourth quarter. I get the puck first, and then start moving towards the opponent territory. We find out there are no goalies.
Oh, what?
Yeah,
Get out of here! I had no idea.
The goalies were pulled.
Oh my gosh! In this fourth period.
Yep, goalies are pulled on the period after the shootout.
Are you kidding me?
There is guaranteed to be a winner.
Someone's gonna win. Oh my god.
Yeah. So I ended up winning 5-2.
So it wasn't a sudden death overtime thing. It was you played the full.
You played the full period, which at first we thought it was the first goal that won. Which I ended up getting the first goal. I jumped out of my seat, popped off so hard, and then realized, oh wait, we still have a game that's still going.
Funny. Oh, that's great.
So,
you almost got caught with the pop off. That's amazing.
Yeah. Now, and like I said, I've never dealt with this extra period before, let alone a shootout. So I didn't know what was going on or what to do at that point. All I thought was the first goal, which the announcer did say, the first goal was to be the winner. But clearly he didn't even know that it still continued on after.
That's great. I love it.
So, which is funny to hear that from him because the dude works at Nintendo. But he's good people too. But yeah, that was probably one of the most, actually to this day, it is the most intense finals Arcade Armageddon had ever had.
The challenge is ice hockey. The power is Nintendo. It's as slick as ice, as fast as fury. Throw in your shoulder, dig in your blade, blast it in, or be blown away. Ice hockey. Now you're playing with power.
God, let's see. The next year, I stopped competing in Arcade Armageddon that year. So instead, I actually started help running the tournament. So I got to choose the games and whatnot.
And since you were running it, you weren't really able to participate because you knew the games and you could have prepared.
Exactly. I told the coordinator, I said, okay, I'm just going to let you know that, as much as I love to compete in these things, if I'm going to help you choose these games, I'm not competing because that ain't fair. I like things to be fair.
No, of course. So now before we continue on with your experience with the Arcade Armageddon, I did want to ask you a couple things popped out to me as you were talking. First thing I was going to ask is during that third competition that ended with ice hockey, the organizers asked you what you thought of the game selection. Did you know what that game selection was going into it? Or was it one of those things where they kind of ran it by you and you didn't really give it much thought? I'm not asking if you had known ahead of time and were able to prepare. I'm just curious if that was, if you had known about what the games were. Obviously not ice hockey, but
yeah, they make an announcement on the Seattle Retro Gaming Expo's at this point in time Facebook page, and what they do is they announce the competition games.
Gotcha. So they announce. So they do announce them. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So people can at least get a.
Yeah, gotcha. They announce them so that people can at least get some practice in.
Gotcha. Another thing that popped out was you were helping your friends a lot throughout the initial stages of it. You're talking about giving them pointers on certain games and don't touch the shoulder buttons, right? That kind of thing. I think that's really cool that you, even though you're in a competitive environment, you still wanted to see your friends do well. I think that's really, really cool. That's not only just good sportsmanship, but kind of good friendship, if that makes sense. It sounds like you're able to kind of separate the two and see, I want my friends to do well too. I don't want to see them struggle through it. More of like an honest competition.
Yeah. And we, even to today, I know some of the guys that I hang around with on Twitter and Twitch, the RGB high score guys. Yeah. I'm always helping them out where I can, and they do the same for me. If for whatever reason they know a game that I don't, they'll help me out, and I'll just be like, all right, hey, that's great. I know there are a lot of people that are like, oh, I don't want help, I don't want any hints, blah, blah, blah for all these older games. But the way I see it is this game's been out for God knows how long now. Does it really matter? I mean, that's just personal opinion. I know other people, I know a few people that are like, well, I still haven't played this game, so, I want to figure it out for myself. And fine, you do you, but I'll play the game when I play the game, and if I know what happens, cool. If I don't know what happens, cool.
Equally cool, right?
Yeah. So I don't care.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a healthy way to approach it, right? Just let it come to you a bit.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
But yeah, so going back to helping people out, I enjoy helping others out. So when people are like, I don't know what to do here, does anybody have any ideas on how to help? And usually if I know the game, I'll try and be the first person to chime in and be like, okay, well, this is what you do. Blah, 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 blah. And it may take them a try or two or five, but they'll eventually get it.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, great, progress.
And it makes for a better game experience for you too, right? You don't want to just destroy people. You want to see people, I'm sure, do well and compete well. I at least that's what I'm gleaning from the conversation.
And I mean, it's not just competition, but casual gaming.
Oh yeah, totally.
But yeah, if we're doing speedrun stuff, which something I'll get into later. Yeah. If somebody wants help to get through a game faster and I know a way to do it, I'll let them know. Just be like, hey, okay, do this. And, again, it may take them a try or two or five, but
right.
they'll see what I'm getting at. Yeah. Or if I have to show them, they'll be like, oh, okay, I see what you did there.
Right.
So, sometimes it's just easier to show them than to explain things.
Well, that's always the case. Sometimes seeing is better than that explanation.
I had to show somebody who was playing Super Metroid for a first time, and she was struggling in a spot and didn't know how to really, make it easy for herself. Sure. So I said, okay, well, here, try this. And then I tried explaining to her, but she didn't really grasp it. So what I did was I made a little video clip and said, okay, this is how you approach this.
Yeah.
Speed boost, press down so you're ready to shine spark, hold the diagonal, and then jump.
Yeah.
And it zips you up diagonally.
Mm-hmm.
And so once she saw that, and she was like, oh.
Unlocked it for her, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, doing that will make things much easier than having to constantly use your grapple beam and miss blocks or miss whatever.
Right.
It's just that doing it that way makes it so much simpler.
And that's it's a little known trick. Everyone knows how to do the shine spark upwards, but diagonal is something not a lot of people realize. The game doesn't tutorialize that at all. You just
doesn't
know that maneuver. Yeah, that's cool that you were able to expose that to her.
Game doesn't show you how to do it diagonally or horizontally.
No.
They only show you vertical.
Correct.
So yeah, I have. If anybody asks for advice or help with games that they want to do better in, I'll be happy to help if I can.
When doing wrap-ups, I always record them after I've finished the entire episode. It just feels right to record the coda last. After everything is done and everything's layered in, listen to it, and then record this ending. So I, like you, have been listening to this for about 45 minutes, and I realized something toward the end of that last segment. Paul doesn't sound like a competitive video game player. Or at least not my stereotypical vision of one. See, I'm used to sensationalized YouTube videos of controller smashers and in-your-face pop-offs, and I'm aware those people are the vast minority, right? I'm sure those are videos I shouldn't even be watching, right? I am not immune to clickbait, and I know those things really aren't good for me. It gives me the wrong impression of an entire community. I'm well aware. But I really wasn't ready to hear somebody genuinely say how they'll help anybody with a game who needs it. Paul's energy behind that statement wasn't one of self-satisfaction. It was one of course I'll take the time to make a video for somebody who needs a Super Metroid tip, because why wouldn't I? Just refreshing to chat with someone who has just as much heart as he does skill. Next week, we're going to walk the road Paul traveled to the 2019 Classic Tetris World Championship and experience his history-making round against the greatest Tetris player who ever lived. And as always, thank you so much for listening to A Gamer Looks at 40. If you enjoy the program, do the podcast things. Most importantly, a like and a review on Apple Podcasts takes you 3 minutes. Say something nice, and then move on with your day. Other than that, do all the podcast things everyone else asks you to do. And until next time, continue working toward greatness.